welcome everybody. This is Unleash. I'm just going to close the chat for a little bit just so I can kind of see my screen a bit more. And I'll navigate between the chat when there's like sort of natural pauses or when Christina comes on. So today we're talking about Unleash 2022. It's a bit of a tongue twister. Doing less and impacting more. So the idea behind this is that I started coming up with myself when I was reflecting. So around November last year, I was reflecting on my business year and sort of my life year. And I realized I had done a lot in 2021. And this was an opportunity, I think, as I was starting to look into the new year, it's like, how can I impact more and do less? And do less around commitments, around launching things, like really distilling and refining what I was doing in my business. And I could see that a little bit with some of the clients that I was working on. So I started looking into this more and understanding a little bit more. Do less, I sort of adopted from Kate Northrup's book around doing less. She talks about managing our time and being really efficient in running our business, especially as women in business. And not that this topic today or the next 5 days is specifically for women, business leaders or entrepreneurs, but I took the sort of the theme of doing less from her. And so when we get into kind of today's session, first of all, I wanted to, kind of kick things off and just present a land acknowledgement. I always feel it's important to, pay gratitude to the land that we are all privileged to live on and play on and work on and fulfill all of our life goals on. So I want to acknowledge the Coastal Salish Territory and the people, the First Nations people that came here before me. And I specifically reside on the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh and Musqueam Nations land. And I'm super grateful. I was actually born in this area, better known as Vancouver. I'm grateful to live, work, and play here, as my land acknowledgement talks about. So I'm just going to mute a couple people's lines for you, just to help you out, and just kind of keep track of that a little bit if you can throughout the session today. That'd be great. Okay. And then just here's a little bit about me. So, just from an acknowledgement standpoint, my name is Brenda Rigney. I'm a business and leadership coach. I'm really excited for you to be joining in Unleash today. Here's where you can find me. My company and the work that I do is all around discovering your three uniques and identifying what those unique passions, values, experiences, skills, talents that you have, and how can we align those to all areas of your life. And I specifically work with women leaders inside organizations, as well as entrepreneurs starting up their business, and what does it look like to launch their business. And so often I have women and men leaders coming to me saying, I have this business idea and I want to launch, and what does that look like? I'm like, well, what makes you unique? What's going to make you stand out? What's going to be different? What's going to be something that somebody needs? And it's sometimes a stumbling block for folks to be able to identify what makes them unique. And I find that once we land on what those things are, then how we launch the business, how we connect with clients, that I don't want to say is the easy part, but it's a little bit easier than trying to figure out what your uniques are. And so if you don't know what those things are first, that's where I always sort of take my clients to first. And so we'll talk about sort of discovering your three uniques a little bit throughout our 5 days together, but really the focus for Unleash is unleashing 2022 and doing less and impacting more. What I'd love to do is, before we get started, just because of the number of people, we won't necessarily be able to introduce all of us, but if you feel comfortable, maybe, I know that many of you have muted your lines, which is fantastic, but you've also turned off your cameras, and feel free to do that throughout the 5 days. By no means do you have to have your camera on. But if you want to right now, it might be kind of fun just to turn your camera on and just sort of look around the room. Look at the people that you're going to be spending these maybe 2 or 3 days with, maybe all 5 days of Unleash. And just let's just acknowledge everyone. You can do a wave if you want. You can do a little emoji, hands up, but just say hi, from that standpoint. If you want to unmute your line and say hi, that's fine too. I think sometimes, when we live on Zoom, as we're doing right now, or we have been over the last few years. Hey, Karen, there's your nice face. Hello, it's good to see you. If you feel comfortable, just kind of look around and say hi. Thanks, Mark, for putting a little smile up. Good to see you. Hey, Heather. Good to see everyone. Miss Iona, I haven't met you yet. This is awesome to see you here today. Thank you. And Shireen, yeah, a little wave. Thanks. Okay. It's Prachi. Hi. Good to see you. And again, some people I haven't met before. We've been maybe connected online. There's Christina. Thanks for giving us a little peace symbol. Awesome. A smile. Amazing. Good to see everyone. Okay. And I want to try and make this an interactive session. We do have quite a few people on. Each day we've pretty much sold complete capacity of like 100 tickets per day. I put a max on there because I really wanted to try and make it as interactive as possible. And so feel free at times if there's a question that you have, you can put it in the chat. If you want to raise your hand, we'll definitely be monitoring it. So as we have the different guest speakers that come on, feel free to ask questions. We want to make sure that it's an interactive session and that it's not just something that you're being lectured to for 5 days, and that you actually pull away learnings. So sorry, I gotta put my mouse back on. When I think about the 5 days and really what we're going to be focusing on, there's 6 strategies that we are going to talk through. And the speakers that I've brought on, they're guest mentors within my Aligned AF, which is my 12-month coaching experience that I have for women leaders and entrepreneurs. And so if you are in Aligned AF, I've got some of my clients, I know Tegan's in here, but I've got some of my clients that are in Aligned AF, and so they will interact with these guest mentors throughout the year. And so I brought them in for Unleash this week and next week to talk about these 6 strategies. So when I think about doing less and impacting more, the way I really focus my time is, first of all, and it's funny because I probably for the majority of my life would have thought more about number 6 here, working, I just need to work more, or I need to figure something out, or I need to figure out a better time management schedule. And that could be part of it. But what I've learned over the last few years is where I actually feel like I'm impacting more and impacting more of myself. It's about putting my body first. So today we're actually going to kick things off with Catherine Roscoe Barr, and we're going to be talking about putting our body first. And then from there, what is the story you're telling yourself? There's lots of times where there's good stories that come out of my head about you've got this, Brenda, go for that goal, go for that strategy, do this with your business, do this with this relationship. It's going to work out for you. But more often than not, and this is just how our brain is wired, our limbic brain at the back here, which doesn't necessarily think about all the cognitive and creative elements, but it's more how we get things done, will keep telling us that we're not gonna be able to do it. It's doing that to protect us. And so tomorrow, when we bring in Minna Taylor, Minna is a confidence communication coach. She's gonna be talking to us about what is the story you're telling yourself. Because if the story you're telling yourself is, you can't get this goal done, or you're too burned out to actually, take on that next strategy or the next plan. Well, that could be true, but what's the story that you need to be telling yourself in order to get through, to make that goal happen? And not to dismiss it, but actually to lean into that story and understand it and maybe change the narrative. But there's some steps to maybe go through to do that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tomorrow with Minna. And then getting clear. So once we know what the story is that we're telling ourselves, is it serving us? Is it not serving us? How do we get clear on what we need to be doing next? And when we come back on Tuesday, we're going to spend some time with Amy Keller. And she's on the call today. Amy is a relationship and intimacy coach. And we're going to be talking about getting clear in some of our relationships. What do we, expect of people? How do we work with people? How do we live with people? Because not only are we business leaders and entrepreneurs, and we're obviously working with clients and vendors and maybe teams of people that work for us or contractors, we also have other people in our life, in our relationship bubble. Those are partners, significant others, maybe children, parents, other friends, family, that we want to get clear on. I'll be talking a little bit too after Amy talks about setting boundaries and how do we set clear boundaries with people in our life. Because when we set boundaries, we can get a lot more done. There's probably some things that we're saying yes to that we don't really want to. And there's some things that maybe we'd be saying no to that we really want to say yes to. So just getting really clear on our yeses and our nos. We'll come back on Wednesday with Chrissy Hollis. Chrissy Hollis is a CPA, she's a CA, and she's a mindful money coach. And she is going to be talking to us about offering less and building up resiliency in our business. So whether or not you work for somebody else, you're a leader in another business, or you have your own business as an entrepreneur, how are we building up resiliency? How are we offering less and being really clear on what's important to us? And then we'll finish up our last day on Thursday next week. I'm bringing in Tracy Keough. Tracy is a holistic inner healer. She's a breathworks and mindfulness coach. She works with crystals, essential oils, archangels. She brings in so many magnificent tools. We'll talk about lunar scheduling and working cyclically. When is the best optimal time for you to work? Are you a morning person? Or are you an evening person? I've discovered with myself personally, like I'm highly creative in the morning. I'm very reflective and analytical in the afternoon. And in the evenings, I find I've become even more productive. When my kids were younger, I have 2 teenage daughters, I was probably exhausted more in the evening because I was multitasking and doing so much. But now that I've actually recognized that there's different days or seasons that I'm actually more optimal in working, I find that I'm, for sure, like by 10 o'clock, I'm tired, but I'm not exhausted. And I'm using those times when I'm like optimally doing the best work. So if I want to be creative in my work, it's definitely the morning for me. If I want to look at my numbers in my business, it's the afternoon. And if I want to be productive, like actually create content maybe for my business or do something around the house that's going to be productive, it's the evening for me. And I know I could just be sitting on the couch, maybe watching Netflix, but I find that that's just my optimal time to get certain types of tasks or work done. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And for me, this becomes like the formula to doing less and impacting more. And we'll dig into this over the 5 days. So I'm hoping that this feels good for you. And with the speakers that we're bringing in, you're going to pull away some really great tools. Personally, I've worked with all of them. I've either brought them into my business to coach my clients, and so I've been coached through them that way, or I've hired them as a coach, or they've hired me as a coach. So like we've worked together in various capacities. So it's going to be super fun. I'm going to check the chat really quick. So this is where I have to just kind of like go toggle back and forth. Hello, people are saying hello. Awesome. No worries. Just come in, and this session is going to be recorded. Absolutely. Here, I'll put in the chat one more time, just some logistics for today. So just check those out. There's a few things to download if you want to download, but by no means don't feel rushed. If you're working off of a phone and you don't have your laptop or a printer or whatever available to you, you can access this all when it's like a bit more reasonable. And later on today, I will definitely send out the recordings for everybody. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little bit of a time check to make sure we're on all good for time, because Catherine's going to be coming in at a little bit after 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and she's going to be talking to us about putting our body first. One more thing in the chat here. Just make sure I got it. Okay, no problem, Heather. Absolutely. Okay, sit back, relax, enjoy. So today, our first workshop, we're talking about putting our body first. So I want to introduce you, and maybe this is not an introduction, maybe you've seen this before. Tara Brach is a meditation, mindfulness practitioner. You can often find her meditations on public apps like Calm, Insight Timer. What's the other one I'm thinking of that I'm missing? I usually subscribe to Insight Timer and I use it every day. And she's amazing. She offers courses, etc. And she's written a few books. This is a model that I love to put in place for lots of my clients. It's called the RAIN model that she has created. And the RAIN model is really effective when we're talking about putting our body first, because when we are working on a goal or a strategy for our business or our relationships and in our life, we want to make sure that we're embodying the goal. And we oftentimes utilize this vessel up here, our brain, for a lot of our work, which is fabulous. It's great. It has a lot of information, but we also have this whole vehicle, right? It's the whole body. And so when we're working on goals, how do we embody our goals so that we feel good about doing them? And that if there's something that's coming up for us, like how do we notice it and get clear about it before we jump into that goal? So there's been times definitely in my life, like I can even think of something even this week that's occurred where I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I can give a full yes to something because I feel in my body some element of tension. It could be coming up in my neck. Maybe my hands are feeling a little clammy. Maybe my tummy's like getting a little bit, ruptured. So I want to lean into those. And first and foremost, I will always say to people when we're working on our body and we're talking about embodying our goals, you want to do it in a safe space. You want to do it with either people that you can co-regulate with and feel good in that situation, or you choose to do it on your own in, again, a safe place, a safe time where you can do this work. Because sometimes what will also happen is when we're putting our body first and we're responding to maybe a trigger that's happening in our body as a reaction to how we feel about a goal or a project or a task that we're taking on, it can sometimes bring up maybe some emotions, like heavier emotions. We might feel sadness, we might feel anger or frustration. And all those emotions are good to feel, but if we're not used to sort of leaning into that emotion, it can sometimes feel a little jarring. It can kind of put us off place. And so we want to make sure that we do it in the most gentle way. And so I'd also encourage you today and over the next 5 days is at any point in time, if you're feeling like, whoa, this is too much, or this is definitely causing some type of reaction, I'm feeling some type of tension that I'm not necessarily used to feeling, or when I do feel it in the past, it's made me feel upset or sad or frustrated, then, turn the sound down. Take a step away. Tune us out for a few minutes if you need to. But one of the things I'll ask you to do too is maybe utilize this model. So I'll just walk you through it. So RAIN is we recognize. So when we are setting out an intention to do a body of work, a goal, a strategy, a project, a conversation with somebody, if we're feeling some type of anxiousness or worry, just recognize it in the moment now. That's the key thing, is that you could go back and, and I've done this with clients, go back to the past and say, okay, yeah, how did you feel last week about it? But the essence of really putting your body first is that you recognize it in the moment. So recognize that, sign of anxiousness or worry. And again, it's going to show up for you. You know probably where that is in your body. For me, it's always in my jaw. I grind my teeth. I wear like one of those things, mouth guard. And I grind my teeth at night. That's where I hold my tension, is in my jaw, and like I'm wearing down my teeth. And my dentist and I were talking about it before the holiday season, like what I can do more to make sure that doesn't happen. And it's just, as I'm moving through big goals in my life, there's going to feel more tension, more anxiousness, more worry is going to come up. And oftentimes that can sometimes, again, feel a little bit awkward. It's like, how do we lean into it gently in a safe way? So first, recognize that it's happening in the moment. And then allow for the experience, again, in that safe space that I mentioned earlier. Investigate, so deepen our attention to it. Like, why is that happening? Is that happening just, it's a one-off situation, or is it always happening with this one person or in this circumstance? Again, we're not necessarily looking for blame or justification or some type of rationalization at this point. We're just trying to deepen our attention and our awareness to why this trigger is coming up for us. And then nurture. So apply some tools. And I'm going to share a few tools with you in just a few seconds. But we want to apply some tools that will help regulate our nervous system. So whenever we start a goal, start something new in our business, start a new relationship, we want to invest in our body, invest in our nervous system. And if folks aren't aware of how our nervous system is designed, just from a really quick 101 sort of like neuroscience overview, and Catherine, I'm sure, will talk about this a little bit more when she jumps on, is our nervous system is made up of sort of two channels, our sympathetic nervous system and our parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is usually what gets triggered first when our body goes into, our brain detects some type of fear, fight, flight, some type of incident that could potentially occur. It senses that, and it basically sends messages, tingling messages through our nervous system, our sympathetic nervous system, to all areas of our body. And in essence, it tightens, right? That's where we get the tension from. It's like, be on alert, be on guard. The tiger has come into the cave. And for sure, for many of us, like going back in time, that's maybe where we were living. But now in most cases, we are in homes, in cities. We don't necessarily have to worry too much about tigers coming into our home, but we still are programmed. Our body is still programmed to respond that way. And so we just need to understand that we've got the sympathetic nervous system that usually responds on high alert stressors around that, creates a reaction of fight, flight, or freeze. And then we've got the parasympathetic nervous system. Once our nervous system gets calm and regulated, and we can send messages to our brain that, hey, it's okay, like we're good. We've seen the tiger before. We know what it looks like, and we can figure this out. Is that then the parasympathetic nervous system really is there to help generate those feelings of love, kindness, generosity, collaboration, creativity. And a lot of that comes through the prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of our brain. The back part of the brain, the limbic brain, is kind of, the functioning part of our brain. Keeps all the organs moving, keeps our blood flowing, keeps the oxygen pumping through, and it's there to, keep the engine running. We need both. This front part of our brain, though, is probably the lesser developed part of our brain. And as primates that we are, mammals on the planet, we're not dissimilar too much from, again, animals on the plains of Africa. So when a gazelle sees that lion come out of the bush, it's going to react. And so it's going to rely on that sympathetic nervous system. It's not going to sit there and say, how do I love this lion? So it's not going to go to the parasympathetic nervous system to decide what it's going to do next. So I know that's maybe, for some, this may be new information. I love combining neuroscience and understanding how the brain works. Into I'm meeting your line. Thank you. Awesome. Good to see you. So again, when we're using Tara's model here around RAIN, we want to recognize those signs of anxiousness and worry when we're taking on that new project or that goal. And we want to allow for the experience in a safe space. So does that mean that we need to remove ourselves from the situation, put pause on, turn your camera off, like whatever you need to do to make sure that you feel comfortable in that safe space and that you can recognize what your body needs at that moment in time. And then investigate. So really, have a deeper level of attention to what's going on, and then nurture. So I want to share a couple tools with you. And feel free, if you have any questions about what I just shared, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll get to them in a few minutes. I want to share a couple tools though, to look at how we can kind of regulate ourselves. So, and when we get into that sort of nurture part. So, these ones, again, I want you to feel comfortable doing. If you want to turn your camera off, if you don't want to be seen, that's totally fine. Doing that, you don't want that to come up on the recording. That's absolutely all up to you if you want to do that. These two exercises, some of you may be familiar with them. You may have done them with me before if you've worked with me in the past or currently, but they're always sort of like my kind of go-tos. And they involve the breath. So again, feel comfortable wherever you want to position yourself, however you want to do these exercises. If it doesn't feel comfortable for you as we're going through it, you can sit quietly, maybe focus in on an object, or if you like using essential oils, you could also grab a little bottle of essential oils like I do, maybe put a little dab on your hand. Sometimes having another scent in the room, scent is very powerful. It's a great shifter. That can also just be a tool into itself. Just what I'm doing there, I rub a little bit on my hand and sometimes I'll just breathe lightly into my nose, nothing too evasive, or I might just even sit here calmly with my palms facing up and it just kind of aromatically, takes over the room a little bit. So the first exercise I'm going to show you is all about like that deep breath and working from inside here. Because oftentimes, and when I was in India and I spent some time on an ashram and I was working with a Reiki coach and he was talking to me about how like in North America, we don't know how to breathe. He's like, we teach our children how to breathe like day one. And I'm like, what do you mean I don't know how to breathe? Of course, I'm like breathing every day. Like my body's like functioning. He's like, no. He's like, we don't do like this deep breathing, right? Like go right into the belly and pull out any of those things that are sort of staying behind. And then also bring in that oxygen fully into our body. We might do short breaths, uncontrolled breaths. And this is where it's like, we want to control our breath and feel that fullness of the oxygen flowing into our body. So this one is where we take our hands, and it's kind of a funny position. I'm going to tilt my camera down a little bit just to make sure you can see me. And maybe one of the things I'll do is I'll put my screen back up so I can just kind of see myself doing it. So I'm going to lower it down a little bit. Maybe I'll just stand here. I'll just show you when I'm standing. So I'm going to put my hands, it's kind of hard with my blouse, I just realized. I'm going to put my hands like this. So it's just kind of like underneath, like kind of just sitting on the rib cage here. And I know it seems kind of awkward, but I just kind of spread my hands out. And my thumbs are kind of facing forward, whereas my fingers are in the back. Maybe that's a better angle. You can see kind of like that. And I know it seems kind of weird, but what you're doing is you're really pushing out your chest and you're pushing out your arms so that when the oxygen comes in, it's like this fully expressed flow of oxygen coming into your body. Okay, so I'm just going to explain this a little bit and then we'll get into it. So if you're wondering why is it taking so long to get there. So you can do it this way too if that feels more comfortable. If it's like, your shoulders are a little sore, you've been working out this week, or you're just kind of a stiff back. But this is ideally a better position. And you can kind of like, it's holding onto your frame there. So I'm just going to sit down so I can be more in the camera. So I'm going to hold myself there. And basically what I'm going to ask you to do is to, just breathe in a couple times, just normally, right? You don't want to like force this. You don't want to push yourself through this. We'll do like a couple breaths in and then let out. And you can try it a couple of ways. You can breathe in through your mouth and breathe out through your mouth. You can breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. You can breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. I'm going to give you the option, whatever feels comfortable for you. I like to play around with it too, because it also allows me to feel different ways of breathing and different ways of oxygen coming in. So Sadie's just waking up from her nap. She may want to play with a toy in a few minutes. And then what I'm going to ask you to do is also to try and hold your breath for, like, say, a count of 4 or 5. Again, whatever you feel comfortable with. There's no pressure to perform or to do it the way that I'm telling you to do it, whatever you feel comfortable with. So if we're going to hold for 4 and you feel comfortable at 2, try 2. And then maybe next time, try 3. So let's start. Okay, so I'm just gonna hold my rib cage here, and I'm gonna push my head out a little bit and just make sure that there's that flow. I don't want to arch my neck too back, and I don't want to be down too far forward like this. Hey, Sadie, she's come over here for a little pat. So, okay, I'm gonna breathe in through my nose. I'm gonna breathe in again. This time I'm going to hold it for 4. So I'm just going to count to 4. I'll count aloud, but you can count in your head. You don't need to count aloud if you don't want to. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let out through my mouth. One more time. Do one more. And if it's easier for you, you can also close your eyes. So you can just relax your shoulders. And so what I'd ask you to do is just, even using the RAIN model, what did you recognize? And from there, what did you allow? Be curious, investigate. If you feel comfortable, you can put anything in the chat, like just things that you recognize. Did you notice anything? Did you see a shift? Did anything come up for you? And we're going to try another one in a couple minutes, but if anyone has any questions or has seen anything or something shifted, your back popped. Okay. Awesome. I felt my jaw kind of look a little bit when I was talking. That kind of happens. You might also experience a little bit of like yawning. You might feel a little bit tired. Sometimes by bringing in that oxygen deeply, you might feel that. You might feel, sometimes I'll start coughing just because of, now I've got some dryness. I took a sip of tea there. I might feel a little bit stuffy. Sometimes even laughing because it feels like maybe a little bit awkward. Sally, your shoulders felt a little bit relaxed. Awesome, in your upper back. It can also bring up sometimes emotions. So we just did it for like a few minutes there. But what I would encourage you to do is try and do it 10 times. I feel I'm able to breathe more deeply now. Okay, good. Shireen, I felt restful. Awesome. Yeah, so it can make you feel sometimes a little bit sleepy. And that's okay, right? That's okay to feel a little bit sleepy because it's just your body, your nervous system calming down. And when you have your nervous system calming down, again, you've got choices. Do I want to take on goals and projects or that conversation with somebody when I'm tense and I'm feeling closed off? Or do I want to feel restful, calm, my shoulders are relaxed? That maybe kink in my back just popped a little bit. And so now I'm actually more open to receiving and more open to giving. So just notice that. Let's try one more. So this one is not maybe so awkward with the hands. It might be a little bit more comforting. And it's basically, I just kind of call it the hold or the hug. And so you can hold yourself, again, do what you feel is comfortable for you. Let's ask you to just check your line just to make sure you've muted it so we can focus in on this. I think someone's just come off mute. Thank you. So I call this a hold or a hug. And so do what feels comfortable for you. I did left and then right over it. You can also do the opposite. For me, that feels a little bit awkward. I'm right-handed, so right just goes over top. It's more my dominant side. So whatever feels comfortable. If this is too tight, you could also go lower down, right? You could do one hand or the other hand, whatever feels comfortable for you, right? But it's called the hold or the hug. And same thing. So it's like, it feels maybe a little bit constrictive. It shouldn't, but now you're going to breathe in. So let's practice. I'm going to ask everyone, if you didn't hold for say 4 or 5 counts, let's do it now. Let's just try maybe 1 or 2. And so just check your line for mute. That'd be awesome. And so here we go. We'll just breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the nose, out through the nose. Try different ways. You can also close your eyes if you want, if that's easier for you, or you can look down in a downward gaze. Okay, this one I'm going to hold for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try 2 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. What did you notice? What did you recognize? What did you allow for? Investigate. What was coming up? How are you feeling right now? Anything shifted for you? Feel free to put it in the chat and share. I must need a hug because that made me feel sleepy. Everyone needs a hug, Christina. Hugs are great. I think they say when you do give a hug to somebody, give it for 20 seconds because then you can really feel it. You can really embody that hug. And do a count for 20 seconds. And you may feel like, oh, 20 seconds is, like when you count out 20 seconds, it could feel like a long time. Prachi, feeling rested. Awesome. Yeah, and that's how I want you to feel as we go into our sessions over these 5 days together, is that we shouldn't feel, like when I say unleash 2022, it shouldn't feel like, oh, like I have to get something done fast. Like let's approach this year differently if we need to. Ease into it. You feel calmer. Iona, great. Shreen, I felt very peaceful. Awesome. Yeah, and so sometimes I think too, like when we sign up for sessions like this, it's like, oh wow, I'm gonna walk away with, you know, pages and pages. And that's why when I created the workbook, it's like, yeah, it's pretty much a blank page for day 1. You take away what you need to take away. If this is what you take away from today, awesome. I know you're gonna get lots of powerful gems from Catherine, and I think I'm gonna check to see sort of like where she's at. Does anyone have any questions about what I shared though around sort of like neuroscience or wellness? Catherine's gonna be here. She can help answer a lot of your questions too. So if there's still things that you wanna hear and listen to, we'll get into it. But feel free to put things in the chat. And Catherine's here. Hello, Catherine.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome.
Can you see my screen right there? Just
I can.
Okay, so I'm just going to introduce you a little bit if that's okay.
Yeah.
So Catherine, first of all, I mean, what do I say about you? You're a superstar, you're a goddess. She's a guest mentor within Aligned AF. This is our second like sort of time together, sort of talking about what she does, and I'm really excited. Catherine is a neuroscience-based wellness coach and the founder of Life Delicious. You can find out where she is here. There's her website on the screen and her Instagram account. So feel free today too, as Catherine's talking, like take a picture, post it up on Instagram, share her handle to give her some love. So Catherine's all about empowering women to reclaim their time, rediscover wellness, rewire their brain for the better. Her sustainable practices are grounded in pleasure. And Catherine and I like have had lots of like conversations over, over text, but also one-to-one talking about like pleasure and how can we bring more pleasure into our work, into our relationships, into our businesses. And Catherine is a certified personal trainer. She's a fitness instructor and a coach practitioner and a writer. She does like a lot of blog writing, food writing. She's traveled all over the world.
Yes, I miss those days. I'm traveling all over the world.
Yeah. I'm so excited for everyone to meet with you. So Catherine, I'll navigate the chat if there's questions that come up, or I'll raise my hand or just like give you a signal if anyone has anything that they want to share with you.
Hey.
Are you ready to take it away?
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you. One thing, my website is delifedelicious.ca. And I forgot to tell you, but I just finally got my name as my Instagram handle. So like last night, it's Catherine at Catherine Roscoe Barr. But
I will change that right now.
It will redirect you to it once I get on that. But yes, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, I'm so excited. I love that you've titled this Putting Your Body First, because it's such an important mindset to think about when we are working on our business and there's all this stuff going on in our life and there's the pandemic and social injustice. There's just so much. It's like, what can we do to live our best life even when things are crazy? And putting your body first, putting yourself first is really key. And I love the neuroscience perspective of how we do that and why we should do that. That our whole body and our brain, which is where I come from, everything from how do I improve my mental health? The physical benefits of, having muscles and, being strong, that's sort of secondary to me. The mental health and mindfulness aspect of it comes first. And your body was designed to move. Every single organ in your body functions better through movement. And this is especially true with your brain, that when you move, you're increasing your circulatory system, and your brain, even though it's only 2% of your body weight, it uses 25% of the energy you consume. So your brain needs you to move for it to function properly, for you to be able to use executive function, to be calm during the storm, to be creative, to be mentally flexible, to be calm and kind and compassionate. Those abilities you're only able to access when you're not in that fight or flight response. And so moving your body allows you to access that. But you don't want to go too hardcore. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday when early in my personal training career, I lived in Toronto and I trained a lot of executives, and they had a very high stress load. There was lots going on at home and work and with families, and maybe they weren't eating well and drinking too much, and they came to me and they're like, I need to do a marathon. And my advice was, I don't know if that's right for you right now, because your overall stress load is so high. We want to find movement that doesn't exacerbate that. And so you want to really think about your overall stress load when you start to add exercise to your daily and weekly routine, because you don't want to do too much. You don't want to drain yourself. You want it to energize yourself. And so I often tell people to really reduce their fitness goals. Like if you want to work out for 7 days a week, an hour, maybe set a smaller goal, because then it's more attainable and you're not going to burn out, because that's the goal, and what you're doing, which is so amazing during this series of Unleashed, is like, how do you do your best and give more while, being calmer and more relaxed, and not just giving until you're drained. So there's kind of 6 areas I wanted to touch on today that have to do with putting your body first. And those are your breath, your posture, your physical activity just throughout the day, and then more specifically about exercise, strength, endurance, and flexibility. And so I like to start with breath, because it's kind of like we're habit stacking here, that we're layering on. So we want to address the breath first before we get to the exercise part, because it's really important how you breathe. And you want to, especially if you sit, like I think, most of us here listening today sit a lot, that, especially now that we're on Zooms and FaceTimes and at our desks. And so we want to breathe in a way that is expansive, so that we can get more oxygen to our body and to our brain as we're thinking and interacting and creating and building and dreaming. That we want to have an expansive body, and part of that is through our breath. So I call it 1, 2, 3 breathing, that there's sort of 3 areas we want to focus on the inhale and 3 on the exhale. So let's do it together right now. So on the inhale, I want you to imagine as you breathe in that you're getting wider and deeper. So if you have a chair, if you can put the back of your ribs against the chair so that you can feel your ribs expand in the back as you inhale, and taller. So let's just practice that once. We think of inhaling from the belly, getting wide and deep and tall as we inhale. And then as we exhale, we want to engage our core muscles, which is our pelvic floor on the bottom, and our transverse abdominis, which is like an amazing built-in corset, and our diaphragm and our intercostal muscles that help us exhale. So as we exhale in a 1, 2, 3, first the pelvic floor, so like that Kegel, like you're trying not to pee or poo. So you want to think about both of those sphincters elevating as you exhale, and then your TVA. So imagine your whole waist just shrink wrapping towards your center. And then your ribs, you want to just exhale and shrink wrap your ribs. So that's the 1, 2, 3 on the exhale. So let's try that together on the inhale and exhale. So as we inhale, you want to get taller, wider, and deeper, really focusing on those back ribs expanding. And on the exhale, number 1, pelvic floor, shrink wraps up. Number 2, transverse abdominis, shrink wraps towards your spine. And number 3, ribs, shrink wrap towards your spine. Let's try that one more time at your own pace. Inhale and expand. Exhale, shrink wrap. Let's try that one more time. And exhale. So I love to start my day with a breathing meditation, just to remind my muscles and like get into that fascia and stretch them out, to remind them what my breathing capacity and lung capacity is, so that when I'm not thinking about that and I'm, at my computer working away, that my body remembers how to breathe expansively. And when we get to the exercise part, you may have heard, if you've ever had a personal trainer or worked at a gym, people exhale when they're exerting, that you want to exhale on exertion so that your core is really tight and strong to protect you when you're lifting heavy weights. So you always want to exhale on exertion, on the hardest part. So we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to exercise. So that's breathing. And so by breathing, we've already started to expand our posture. I'm a huge fan of Amy Cuddy. She has a book called Presence, and a really like one of the most popular TED Talks. And it's about how your posture affects your physiology, your psychology, and other people's perception of you. And so her research and the research she shares of others shows that when you have expansive body posture, your hormone profile is actually different. They took saliva samples from calm, confident leaders, and low cortisol helps you, that the hormone profile was lower cortisol and higher testosterone. So lower on the cortisol helped them feel calm, confident, calm, present, mentally flexible, and the high testosterone helped them feel confident and assertive. And so that's the ideal hormone profile of an excellent leader, someone who is present and grounded and calm, but also confident and assertive. And she found that doing what she calls a power pose for just 2 minutes changes your hormone profile. So a power pose can be putting your arms up in a wide V and standing with your feet hip distance apart and just holding that expansive posture and thinking about your breath. Or a little less extreme is putting your hands on your hips and sort of lifting your chest. And so, whenever I do public speaking, I always, stand like this before I go on stage, and it just helps to help you feel powerful. But it's so interesting that it's changing your physiology, your psychology, your self-belief. She says, when you expand your body, you expand your self-perception and other people's perception of you too. That we know first impressions are really important. Do you want to work with a wellness coach who has really contracted posture, or someone who, is open and welcoming and confident? And so the way we hold our body is really important. And I applied that. I thought, okay, that's interesting. If we hold our body for 2 minutes, it changes our hormone profile. What if we focus on an expansive body when we're in the gym? Because what I used to see a lot was what people call the beach body workout, it's what you see in front. So crunches, chest press, bicep curls, but that's exacerbating the forward flexion that we have in our life from being at computers, being on our phone, driving, sitting, watching too much Netflix. And so the focus of all of my physical activity protocols and exercise protocols is to do the opposite, to focus on strengthening the back of the body, the lats, the rhomboids, the spinal extensors, the glutes, that we want to really have a strong back of body to help hold us up so that we can have sort of unconscious, automatic, expansive posture all day long. So we're always in that peak physiological, psychological state when we're interacting with others. Thank you, Heidi. And on the flip side, to focus on stretching the front of our body. So all of my workouts focus on stretching the front. So stretching your chest, stretching the front, your abdominals, stretching your shoulders, and strengthening the back. So let's just talk about exercise now, and then we'll go back to physical activity. So we're already there. So that's one part, focusing on strengthening the back and stretching the front in a 2 or 3 to 1 ratio. And it all depends on your own body. I mean, do you have a really protracted chin? Do you need to be really focused on unhunching your shoulders? Is your back always curved when you're sitting? This is really important. If you think about your tailbone, a lot of us tuck our tailbone under when we sit, kind of hunching under, and that just affects everything down the chain. So you want to think of pointing your tailbone to the back of the room, almost like you're tipping your pelvis forward to help with that posture. And so in a 2 or 3 to 1 ratio of back of the body exercises to front, and multi-muscle exercises. My goal with exercise, as I mentioned earlier, is not like, how's my body gonna look? I'm gonna, be in a fitness competition. It's how is my brain gonna feel? How is my mind gonna feel? What is my self-perception gonna be like? And so I'm a huge fan of multi-muscle exercises that really crank up your metabolism and your energy and are the biggest bang for your buck. So things where instead of doing a bicep curl, you can do a row. So you're both working your biceps and your rear delts, but the back of your body. So you're strengthening your shoulder blades so they want to hold themselves in that nice upright posture all day. So that's a multi-muscle. Another example is, instead of doing tricep extensions, do a chest press or a push-up, because then you're working your arms and your chest. And then the same with legs. Instead of doing extensions, do squats, do lunges, deadlifts, multi-muscle exercises. And you really don't need any equipment. Your body is the perfect weight to use, and you can make everything harder by changing it. So let's just give the example of squats. So you just do a regular squat. It's not that hard. You could probably do 20 to 100 of them. Make it a jump squat. Make it a one-leg squat. Do it really slow, really flex your muscles, make it a split squat, jump side to side while you're doing it. There's always layers you can add to make things more challenging, but not needing any equipment at all. So that's the strength training piece. So let's go back to physical activities. We talked about breath, posture, strength, and now I want to talk about physical activity, because I mentioned our brain, only 2% of our body weight, but using 25% of our energy. And what delivers, oxygen and nutrients to our brain? Blood through our circulatory system. And our body moving itself helps that pump. It helps circulate energy. So at my retreats, I use the example of a clean babbling brook where things are moving and flowing and energy is going out and waste is being removed, or a stinky stagnant pond. And if you're sitting at your desk all day without moving, and then you move to your table, then you move to your couch, your circulatory system is going to be like a stinky stagnant pond. But if you can weave physical activity throughout your entire day, you can keep that flow of energy. So making your life more physically challenging, adding physical challenges or physical movement to your day is so important. So if you're working from home right now, can you work for 45 minutes and then unload the dishwasher, then work for 45 minutes and vacuum, and work for 45 minutes and walk your dog, and work for 45 minutes and take your FaceTime or whatever, your meetings in earbuds and go for a walk? How do you, don't get a leaf blower, use a broom, try and get up and like adding physical activity to your day is so key for all of those things we talked about: mood, focus, presence, vitality. And it's easy to just get into the zone with work and stay at your desk. But when you begin to weave out, like I just did 20 jumping jacks right before I hopped on this call, because I was like, all right, gotta get the energy up. That even if you just do that, I love using the Pomodoro technique, which is just to set a timer and turn off all other distractions, and for 25 to 75 minutes, depending on what task you're working on, and to always have at least 1 minute of physical activity. And so drinking a lot of water is a good way to make sure that happens, because then you have to get up and go pee, and that counts. That's physical activity. And so it's like we're stacking these habits in to layer on, so that we're focused on breathing and moving and strengthening. And so there's a term called guerrilla exercise, and it's kind of what I already mentioned. It's like just weaving in physical activity anywhere you can. When someone's like, can I help you carry your groceries? No, I want that physical activity. And sweat working, networking or moving meetings, if you are, and a lot of that is virtual now, but you can still stick your earbuds in and go for a walk. And the way that movement changes you and affects your nervous system, when you're in the fight or flight stress response, you're very closed and not open. But when you can get into that parasympathetic response through moving your body, you are more collaborative and open. And so if you see physical activity as a tool to help you be more creative and collaborative, there's no more, I don't have time for that. You don't have time not for that. It's such a simple switch in how you approach it, but I just find it makes it so much easier to be consistent. And especially if you are making them really, really small, like I'm going to do 5 minutes. Like I have a bunch of 7-minute workout videos on my YouTube channel, and 6 minutes and 2 minutes, that if you have that goal that it's just going to be really short, once you've created a habit, you can expand or contract it depending on the day, but you could always be consistent with putting your body first. And so that leads, hop in if you have any questions, by the way. I'm just going to keep moving on if there's nothing to touch on those 4 things we already talked about. I'm going to talk about endurance next. We good to keep going?
I think we're good, Catherine. People can put stuff in the chat, and I'll let you know.
Awesome.
Sure.
Thank you. So we want to have endurance. Our bodies are meant to move. Our ancestors spent all day moving around, hunting and gathering. That it's really key that we build up endurance, that our hearts and lungs are strong. And so we want to take that outside. That's the best thing we can do. Just walking, you don't need anything. You don't need any special equipment. Anywhere you live, find a safe and preferably nature-filled place to walk. Even in most neighborhoods, there's trees. You can just stop and take it in. But walking, running, swimming, biking, dancing, having sex, all of those things build our endurance. Anything that gets your heart pumping, followed by rest and recovery, is really, really key to keep your metabolism and circulatory system and lymphatic system working optimally. So you want to find ways that you like, in places you like, in times during the day that you like, to do that. Oh, and that makes me think, people often ask, when's the best time to work out? The best time to work out is whenever you can do it. But I really like, it's my personal practice to exercise in the morning, because all those things we've talked about, it makes you more calm and collaborative and creative and trusting of yourself and feeling powerful. So to have that morning routine to charge yourself up before you go out into the world is I think amazing. But if you can't fit it in the morning, fit it in whenever you can. I always suggest that my clients have a plan A, B, C, and D. So mine are that I work out first thing before breakfast. That's plan A. Plan B is that I work out before lunch. Plan C is that I work out for dinner. And plan D is that I do something just pretty chill before I go to bed. So I know that I can always fit in 5 minutes somewhere during the day. My plan is to do it in the morning, first thing. But if that doesn't work out, I have contingency plans. So I think that flexible framework is really, really important. And then moving on to the sixth piece. So we talked about breath, posture, physical activity, strength, endurance, and now flexibility, that we want all of our joints to have their full range of motion for our entire life. I want to be that 100-year-old at my granddaughter's wedding, being able to win a limbo competition, or at least do the limbo. That it's really important for just daily living that we can move our body in all the ways it's supposed to move. I started my fitness career as the social and fitness director at a retirement home. And, my oldest clients were 102 and 98. And to see what's possible at that age, if you put your body first throughout your life and take time most days to move it, is amazing what life can be like at that age. And so practices like yoga or yoga asana are just so so much emotions are also stored in our body. So I find it's another double whammy where, yes, I feel really good physically, but where am I having tension? What does that tell me about what I'm not doing for my body? And so really paying attention to that through a practice like yoga, where you can check in with, oh, how tense is my neck? Oh, I think I've been on my phone too much. Okay, I'm going to focus on some retracting exercises and stretching those tight muscles. And oh, this arm's really sore. Oh, I think my mouse is in the wrong spot. I should pay more attention to my ergonomics. That really a practice like yoga, where you're getting into every joint in the body, is so powerful if you slow down to really listen, that you can find imbalances, you can find tension, and you can intentionally help release it so that you can do your job and your life feeling better. And so putting all of those things together, it sounds like a lot, but if we can layer and stack them and just think, okay, I'm going to start the day thinking about my breath and my posture and just try and move around. And then a few times a week, I'm going to schedule in some workouts that touch on strength, flexibility, and endurance. And especially if we can have a schedule and a morning routine that builds that kind of all into one over the course of a week, that we can really charge ourselves up and be in that calm, confident, and collaborative state where, the work you're doing, Brenda, with a Lion Day app, that you can really get in alignment with the goals that you want to achieve and the work that you want to do in the world, from a place with a body that can support you in doing that. And like I said, for me, it's all about how our body affects our brain, and moving it is showing our body that we care about it, so it can help us have a mind and a brain that's just ready to give her. So I know we have a few minutes left. I wanted to leave a little bit of time for questions or comments. I would love to hear how people put their body first and, you know, your experience.
Catherine, first off, I just want to say thank you so much. That was a really great overview. I love the 6 steps, the breath, the posture. I put them in the chat for everyone just so I have them there.
Thanks.
Physical exercise, strength, endurance, flexibility. Yeah, any questions, folks, around, like to Catherine's point, any questions you have for Catherine about doing that? Because I think it is about doing less and then impacting more. And how can you leverage your body, right? Not just like your brain to figure out how to do that with your goals. So questions that folks have, definitely put them in the chat, or if you want to unmute your line and just ask right away, go for it.
While we're waiting for someone to come up with a question, I thought of something that I really wanted to share, and it's the idea of boundaries and barriers. And I know that you're like the boundary master talking about that, but inner and outer boundaries and inner and outer barriers. So our inner and outer boundaries are, this is my schedule, this is my time, I'm prioritizing my body, this is when I do it, and that we have those boundaries for ourselves and that we share them with others. But then there's also the barriers. And so that's why I love barefoot, no equipment, naked exercise, because you don't need anything. You just move your body wherever it is. But then what are the inner barriers? And part of that is the pleasure pain spectrum. That if we define exercise or, you know, taking time to do that, it's going to repel us from it. So it's really important to check in with how we're defining healthy habits like exercise and breathing meditation. Because if we have a negative slant to it, it's going to take so much more energy to do it, that if we can define it as pleasurable and really reflect on how good we feel after we do those things, we're going to be drawn to it instead of pulled away. I'm curious which back exercises you recommend. Great question. So anything that's pulling, so lat pull downs, cable rows, dumbbell rows, back extensions, anything that uses multi-muscle exercise. There's so many great resources if you search for multi-muscle back exercises. I find I have to be really mindful about not having an all or nothing attitude. Yeah, run the marathon. Totally. I mean, this is one of the mindset shifts that I teach in my curriculum, is to banish the all or nothing mentality and just do a little bit, because when you're consistent, you build self-trust. If your boundary is, I will exercise 5 days a week, and you never do it, you really damage your self-trust. And so by doing something so ridiculously small, like I'm going to exercise 5 minutes a day, it's so much easier to do it. Yeah, it's so, and it's like that self-belief is really important for practicing healthy habits. So I know it's counterintuitive that I'm like, don't run a marathon, just do 5 minutes. But once you get your foot in the door, you can always expand that. Oh, I'm feeling great. I'm going to keep going. Great questions, guys. Anything else?
Yeah, Sally put a comment in the chat just about being consistent.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you've mentioned, right? It's just like, ease your way in. Could be, again, walk with the dog. This is what I'm doing. Like right after I sign off with a call, I'm taking Sadie for a walk. She always gets her midday walk. And, it's not necessarily, when I think of like endurance or like high cardio exercise for me, it is for her because she gets to run around and frolic and stuff like that. But it's also just getting outside, it's shifting things for me and moving my body. So, and just getting that natural air in versus like breathing air in for my home or office space.
Yes. So, that's like a whole nother talk, that the value of green exercise and natural light to set our circadian rhythm. It's getting outside to move your body is like doubling or tripling the benefits.
And I talked about earlier, just like with this RAIN model.
Yes, I love it.
That Tara Brach talks about, right? Co-regulate with somebody. So you can co-regulate with pets. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I need to have like my partner has to go on every walk with me, or my spouse and we have to work out together every single day. It doesn't have to be that. It could also be if you have a pet. I also have another client that works with plants And like, you know, they work like in green spaces. So just even having plants around you, just having like another living thing around you can also help co-regulate.
Plants.
Um,
Fire.
I also think the other thing too is like, this goes back to kind of what, sorry, I just want to make sure I capture the person in the chat that said this. Oh, what Carrie said about the marathon piece is just like any goal that we have, whether it's like a physical goal that we have or a relationship goal, a goal in our work, we have to be careful not to get into like this sort of uber productivity state. Right? Where I think we're sometimes a little bit conditioned. It's from the sort of like employment conditioning in sort of corporate life where it's like everything I have to do has to create a result. And even moving your body for 15 minutes, doing some breathing exercises before you start on a goal, you're going to get the result. Whatever the result is of like doing less and impacting more will happen. But if we're looking for that, like, well, I'm in sales and I can actually see the revenue coming in today and I can see it on a spreadsheet or on a report. Therefore, that was a good performance. I think when it comes to your body and your health, it is that consistency, sticking with it, not getting into that sort of like employee productivity mindset that sometimes we're conditioned to in the workplace. And that sometimes these bigger goals that we want to take on, these expansive goals, are going to require more than just, you know, checking off something, checking off a box.
Totally. And pleasure is a worthwhile goal. You know, just feeling good is definitely a worthwhile goal.
Yeah, and then Sally put in here, I think you also build self-trust when you lean into discomfort or trying something new. I'm learning to embrace the I'm such a newbie feeling. Awesome. So.
Yes, I love it. And that's talking about that pleasure pain spectrum, that constructive pain is something to think about too. You know, the pain of working towards a goal, that it can feel uncomfortable while you're doing it. Like, oh, running is so hard. It's dark. It's cold. But then as you know, get into it, you're like, oh, I feel amazing. I feel powerful. Let me conquer the day. That it's, that, you know, that spectrum of how we define things and how we feel is, really, really key. Great.
So
comment.
Catherine, it's been awesome having you on today. If anyone else has any more questions for Catherine, feel free to put them in the chat. Now we know where to find Catherine. I changed it from .com to .ca. So there's her website address there. And feel free to follow Catherine on Instagram, send her questions, and like take a picture and post it up on Instagram today and say, you know, like some nice, like loving, kind words. Again, when we like fully express ourselves that way, that also feels good, you know, from a pleasure standpoint. Anna said something. Thanks so much for sharing your knowledge. I have to jump to a meeting. No problem, Anna. This is so brilliant and valuable. Feeling fresh, open, and to the unexpected after this. Awesome.
Love it. Thank you so much.
It's been great having you on today. For folks that are still on, I've just got a couple things more to share with you. So stick around. Catherine, if you want to stay, you can, or you can drop off. And thanks so much for being on today.
Thank you so much. I love you and everything you do. You're amazing. Bye.
Take care. Okay, so for everyone still staying in here, I think one of the things I'd love for you to do is just take a few minutes and just even, you know, reflect on our session today. This is day one of our 5 days of Unleashing 2020-22. We're working on our 6 strategies that I talked about before, all around. So if you remember, I'm going back to my list myself, but putting our body first, which is what we're talking about today. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about what's the story we're telling ourselves, right? So like when we want to take on something big, we got to get some of those beliefs or blocks that we have that are coming up that's telling us, hey, you can't take this on. What are you thinking? You're not smart enough. You're not worthy enough. You don't have enough value. Whatever those things are, we got to talk about those things. So tomorrow, Minna Taylor is going to be coming in. She's a confidence communications coach, and she's going to be talking about how do we change the narrative on the story that we're telling ourselves. And then when we come back next week on Tuesday, on day 3, we've got Amy Keller. Amy is a relationship and intimacy coach, and she's going to be talking to us on getting clear with our why so that we can really show up in our relationships, both personally, professionally, with loved ones, in the most authentic way. Day 4 on Wednesday next week, we've got Chrissy Hollis. She's going to be coming in and talking about offering less and building resiliency. Why are we signing up for 20 things when really we know we can have an impact around these 5 things, and we can do it, and we can build that resiliency in our organizations, with our teams, with our spouse, our partners, in our whole life, right? So the work that I do as a coach is not just necessarily think about one area of our business. I look at the whole life and where we can get alignment in all areas. And then day 5, we'll finish up with Tracy Keough. Tracy is a holistic inner healer, And we're going to talk about breath works and meditation and working cyclically. How do we bring in the lunar calendar? How do we bring in even our menstrual cycle calendar, and understanding just like all the tools that we have available to us around when's the best time to do the work that we need to do. And as a result, we're not having to do things over again. We're not worried about distractions or procrastination or imposter syndrome that pops up every now and then. And you hear all these terms, or burnout. It's like, how do we actually navigate through it? So love to hear from you in the chat. What's something that you loved about today? What's something that you learned, and what's something that made you strong? Feel free to load it up in the chat, or if you want to come off mute, you can do that too. Happy to hear from you. I know I'm trying to get to the chat. My cursor is not showing up for me here. Sorry about that. Where's my... Sorry, I know there's something in the chat. If you want to unmute, you can definitely do that. I can't seem to find my cursor. This is the logistics. Sometimes it happens.
I shared. It's Amy.
Hi.
Hi. And I really loved your questions, actually. What have I learned? I learned to stretch the front and strengthen the back.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved what she said about thinking of movement as pleasure. It was like, oh, right. And what's made you strong, and trusting myself has made me strong.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, and thank you for this session. It was amazing.
That's great. Thanks, Amy, for being on. We're going to see you on Tuesday next week.
Really looking forward to it. Beautiful format.
Awesome. Thank you. And then Carrie said, I think just really great reminders on caring for yourself. Thank you, Christine. Thanks, Christine. I'd love having you here and seeing you again. Shireen, I didn't know that posture can change your physiology. Absolutely. Yeah. And just the whole breathing part, right? Like just bringing in more of the oxygen. Marg, I love learning more about the importance of posture, and we'll check out Amy Cuddy. I took up Pilates Reformer 2 years ago, and it's made a world. Amazing. Awesome. And then
I'm going to jump, if I can, Brenda, it's Kate Parker. One of the things I loved that she was talking about, and somebody else mentioned it in terms of stretching the front and straightening the back, both from a physical sense, but I also thought from an energetic sense, right? I always think of my back body as something, a place where I hold boundaries, and my front body is being kind of more of what I'm giving. And I love that idea of both physically and metaphorically leaning into those back body, trusting my boundaries so that I can give more in the front. So that concept is a good image for me. I loved it.
Yeah, I love that, Kate. And if for those of you that have heard of, oh my gosh, now her name's gonna escape me. Why am I forgetting your name? Anyways, the back, from a metaphysical standpoint, that's where we also hold a lot of our stressor points around money, finances, welcoming abundance. So when we strengthen our back, we actually strengthen also our mindset around welcoming in things. We can hold things up more. We can hold our carriage up. We can hold ourselves up more. And then therefore we're just, we're straightening, we're like facing forward. That's that presence. So we're bringing in that abundance. So from a metaphysical standpoint, like we're just understanding even like Eastern medicine practices where it's like, oh, we focus in on our feet or our throat. It's like there's different areas of our mindset that also project in other areas of our body. So I love the whole piece about the back too. Thanks, Kate, for sharing that. Tanya, I'm doing a 30-day yoga with Adrienne Journey on YouTube and highly recommend it. Thanks for sharing that, Tanya. It's awesome. So just as in closing, so that folks are a little bit more familiar with me, and I'll talk about this, and you can feel free to like reach out or ask me any questions. This is like what working with Brenda looks like. So I'll have this slide up throughout the 5 days. And again, you can reach out or you can check out things on my website. But I work with people one-to-one in group masterminds or online courses. And these are some of the things that I do. And so feel free over the course of the week, reach out to me and let me know. You'll get access to, again, some of the guest mentors. So 5 of the women that we have in our guest mentor program that are offered up in Aligned AF are speaking to us over these 5 days. I also have more. You can go on the website. They'll be popping in throughout the different points of the year. So some really great work that we're doing around reconciliation journey and really understanding how, as depending on our point of origin? How are we recognizing as colonizers what we could be doing in our business to really welcome in diverse points of view, and just understanding how we can be giving back to the land that we're operating our business on. So we've got some guest mentors that are also a part of our program in Aligned AF that work with us. So just a wide variety of people that are coming in. So I want to say thank you to everyone coming in today. Again, we've got sessions over the next 4 days. This will be, the recording will be sent to you later on today, as well as just some helpful links from today's session. And I'll make sure, just from the Amy Cuddy that Catherine had mentioned around presence, I'll make sure I add in her TED Talk in there. So just checking time here. Well, we're probably going to end a little bit early today, but thank you everyone for coming in. I'll give you back a half an hour of your day. Take care, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow.